some local football stuff that was actually interesting yesterday, believe it or not. Daniel Jones comes out with a prepared statement, essentially says goodbye to the Giants and their fans and the organization, knowing that he's never going to see the field again. And then you had Rex Ryan, who's been talking about it. He's been implying. He's been saying things, dropping hints here or there. Go full, give me the job, Woody. Full, I'm taking this Jet job. If I'm the guy, you know I'm the guy. Give it to me again, as he goes on ESPN radio yesterday and basically says that I'm better than any candidate, including John Gruden. He mentioned his name. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I'm doing all right, and not happy about the Rangers losing last night, but I'll get over that. But you would think that if you're going to try to do something, if you're Rex, this is typical Rex. I mean, it's just out there. I mean, he puts himself out there. He is aggressive about it. And then all of a sudden you start seeing some of the old Hard Knocks clips come back and everything else, and you feel like, man, this guy can do it. This guy can do it. And there was one thing I will say about him. He is passionate. There's no question about it. And for some reason, players react to him. And I think a lot of that is obviously the message, the way that he delivers his message. It's a little bit different than the way Mike Tomlin delivers his message. But nonetheless, when you're in a room with Rex Ryan, that's a man's room. You know what I'm saying?
With man stuff.
With man stuff going on. There's no snowflake in that room.
No.
You cannot be a guy that is going to be triggered by something that may be said in a room that is going to be off color, that's going to be maybe a little bit off-putting, but you know what? He is going to challenge you. And he's going to tell you how great you are and how great the team is. And that's one of the reasons why he was so successful the first time he was here.
Yeah, and I love his personality. I loved his tenure with the Jets, even not being a Jet fan. I love what he said yesterday. I just don't think it's a good idea to go back to that. And it's almost like resurrecting the only good time that you have had as a Jet fan in a long time, like just trying to go back there to squeeze more out of that happiness when we are a long way away from that. I mean, we're talking, 14, 15 years from when we were talking about the Jets in the AFC Championship games with Rex Ryan as the head coach. So I just don't know if that's going to work. And I heard Jerry talking about it with Al this morning, saying, man, he's going to get that defense to play well. All right, you would assume so. But tell me if I'm wrong about this, because you'll know a hell of a lot more about this than I would. Rex Ryan, since he's been a head coach in the NFL, there's been a lot of things that have changed with offenses and the rules and everything else. So if he comes out of ESPN, I don't know if he's sitting there watching film every day like John Gruden's watching film every day. I don't know if he's doing that. But I know he's on ESPN and he's talking and he's around the game. But there are guys now like Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Kevin O'Connell, Ben Johnson, that I feel like if Rex comes back and tries to do the same stuff that he was doing back then, are going to run circles around him.
Yeah, but here's the thing about Rex that I will tell you 100%. I'm watching him coach the Jets. The players played for him, and a lot of playing defense, and there are schemes and different things that you have to do and to counterattack what opposing offenses are doing, especially the high-level offenses. And all those high-level offenses, by the way, they all have great players playing for them. And, they have top-quality quarterbacks. They got wide receivers. They got running backs. They got the high-end offensive lines. And, there's only so much you can do defensively to stifle that. But the one thing that you can do, and I think, Bart Scott used to tell me this about Rex all the time, that the guys would run through a wall for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that is something that I actually thought that Rob Saleh had that when he first got here with the Jets, that the guys really liked him and that they wanted to play for him, and the defense certainly, played the way that you would expect them to play for a defense coordinator who had success in San Francisco. And you would think that he would know players and what type of players he would want on his defense. And I felt like they were building towards that. But he never had a quarterback, never had an offense. And I would also say that, Rex never really had a top-flight offense either. It was always about defense and
running the ball.
Ground and pound.
Yep.
Ground and pound. And the one real area where I felt like he mishandled things was with Mark Sanchez, because I thought he babied Mark Sanchez. Remember, he called him the Sanchez and all this other crap. And they went on a game. They played a game in Baltimore, and they got their asses kicked. And Mark looked like he was spooked.
Yeah.
He really did. He looked like Sam Darnold against the New England Patriots, where he was seeing ghosts.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I do know about a quarterback is that you got to put him right back up on the horse the next week. And even if your team was going to lose, I wanted him to throw the ball 50 times. I just wanted him to throw the ball 50 times. And Rex basically took the ball out of his hands. And, they won that way, and it was fine. But in this day and age, it's really hard to try to win every game that way. Like, it just, you got to have guys that are going to throw the ball down the field and that are going to have a quarterback that can handle it. If he comes back here to the Jets, no matter who the coach of the Jets is going to be next year, what is the quarterback situation?
Yeah, and that's obviously a huge question going forward for both of the franchises here. But first, I think you need to establish the general manager, head coach situation. The culture that is there is a huge part of that. And I know the quarterback goes hand in hand with all of that. But, it's a tough situation. Now,
the other thing, too, let me just say this one thing. The one thing about Rex, and I could just see this, whoever the GM is, if they decide to interview Rex, bring Rex in, he's going to say all the right things. I'm a Jet. I bleed green. I believe in this franchise. I can turn this franchise around. The fans love me. And I 100% check. Then all of a sudden the season starts. Crappy quarterback play. This is where the divide starts to happen in the building. You didn't get me a quarterback. How am I supposed to win with this crap? And that's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And I just say, and that's where the intensity gets to be more of the story than the actual field, the play on the field and winning on the field. It's about the interpersonal relationships that go haywire because they can't win.
All right, so we lived the Rex thing, and there's fond memories there, and everybody harkens back to the nostalgia of the great Jet teams during that time. Don't really remember the end of it. Don't really talk about his tenure with the Bills. So I'm going to bring you back to one of these other times that something like this happened. And so he referenced yesterday in that interview, he's like, people say it doesn't happen a lot, guy going back to the job. But when it does, it's worked out. So I was thinking, like, well, what's he talking about? So I go and I go back to Joe Gibbs, because Joe Gibbs was the one to me that would be the best example of this.
John Gruden.
Right, going back to the Raiders, but it ended so weird. You know what I'm saying? He never got a chance to finish that. It was just like, it just was strange. But I think the best example would be of Joe Gibbs, because it's the same organization, and he got 4 full years of being the head coach back in Washington. Do you remember when they rehired him in 2004 after him not coaching that team in Washington since 1992? What your take on it was? Were you like, this is stupid, this is not going to work, or did you like it?
I think Joe Gibbs was so highly respected that everybody felt like they wanted to give him a chance.
Now, this is a guy who won 3 Super Bowls.
I think that organization was in such a state of flux.
Well,
I understand. It's very similar. It's very similar. But my feeling was that Rex. I don't know how people view him. I know how I view him as a coach. Like, I would hate to play against him. He'd be a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And I know he's bombastic, and I know that, the last few years on ESPN, he's not afraid to say things, which means he's good at what he does. Mm-hmm. And he's ready to, throw some red meat out there, which I can appreciate. That's not who Joe Gibbs was. Joe Gibbs was a highly respected religious guy who won, with the Redskins, the former, the Redskin team, and the players admired him. The fan base loved him, and I think they hired him because they wanted somebody with credibility standing on the sideline to kind of re-engage the fan base, if I remember right.
Okay, well, that sounds like this, right? This is someone.
But I'm just saying, like Rex. I'm sure there are coaches out there that are laughing at this.
Well, yeah.
I don't think anybody was laughing at Joe Gibbs just because of the respect that everybody had for him.
I also think that the Jets overrate that time because their history has been such crap. Like Joe Gibbs was a 3-time Super Bowl champion as a head coach. Like Rex Ryan went to back-to-back AFC Championship games, which in Jets history is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But
and again, not to beat on Mark Sanchez, but they had games where he was pretty good, but he wasn't the guy that they thought they were drafting.
So Joe Gibbs, when he came back in 2004, he had 4 full seasons: 6-10, then 10-6, then 5-11, then 9-7, and he was done. So he had 2 losing seasons and then 2 winning seasons, and then it was over.
Do you know who their quarterback was back then?
The 2007.
Was that the Gus Farrat years?
2000. Hold on. It was wow. Oh my goodness, Jason Campbell.
Oh, they drafted. That's right. He was drafted.
Jason Campbell was the guy back in his last year. Let's see, 2006. Was it still Campbell? Kicking, punting, defense. Where the hell's the quarterback? Mark Brunell was there, and Jason Campbell. They both played in 2006. 05, when they were 10-6. In 05, it was Mark Brunell, and he started 15 games.
Yeah, he had a pretty good season, if I remember.
Yeah. So, yeah, veteran quarterback, 10-6, and they had a good year that year.
I mean, I think Rex sees this defense, and I think he sees really good players on this team. And they may not be playing like it right now, and there is a lot of criticism to go around, both offensively and defensively. But I think he sees a reasonably good roster. I don't think you'd have to change that much, but I don't know. I don't know if Woody's going to go down that road again.
But he loved him, so I would not. And this is not me saying that I don't like Rex. I really do like Rex, and I enjoy him, and those times were great. I just think it feels pathetic to go back into your history when the last time you felt good and then take that coach and spit him out 15 years later and think it's going to work again. Sorry, it's not. Like, that time was that time.
I'll tell you, he was pretty convincing yesterday.
But he's great at that. There's no doubt he's great at selling himself. But he brings up, I'll be better than John Gruden. What separates me is because, I'm a Jet and those guys are not, and give me a break. I mean, so the John Gruden thing is actually catching, fire now. Well, apparently enough for Rex Ryan to reference it in that interview. So, yeah. I mean,
the reason is you and I both feel like they have to have some sort of major presence at the head coaching position. They just can't have a guy that's coming off of the Houston staff, the Tampa staff.
Oh, if they hire one of those guys, I'm going to be relentless. I'm just absolutely will be relentless. Like, I'm going to tell whoever that person is, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to say, rent, don't buy. Just do not buy a house. I'll give you all the examples of what happened with Rob Saleh. Like, I mean, even before that guy takes that job, we're like, do you want your career to end now? Like, is it important for you to collect that check on that 5-year contract after coaching for 2 or 3 years and have that money and set your family up? Because it is, and I'm not going to knock you for it. But your career will end. Like, you're probably not going to get another shot at a head coaching job, like Todd Bowles did after he left here. Mangini did.
But Bowles kind of inherited that job down in Tampa when Bruce Arians left. He was Bruce Arians' defensive coordinator.
Right. But Adam Gase, no. I don't think – I mean, I would be surprised if Rob Saleh got another chance of being a head coach. He'll get a defensive coordinator job like that, but I don't think he'll be a head coach again. So, yeah, I mean, if you want your one shot as a head coach to be the head coach of the Jets, then go ahead and do it. But you'll never get another opportunity after they fire you in 2 years.
There's going to be most likely it feels like at least 6 head jobs open, which means that Rob Saleh will definitely get interviews for those jobs.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Here's another thing, too, that I've kind of deduced, that even though the Christopher Johnson era had Adam Gase involved, and that was the worst situation, and that press conference was the worst press conference in the history of press conferences, and you can't convince me otherwise, because you had Christopher Johnson saying that he's coaching where football is going, which is a line that has stuck with this franchise for a long time, and you had Adam Gase having a full-blown crack meltdown in front of the cameras with his eyes darting all over the place. It was the worst press conference ever. But what I feel is that during that time, at the very least, Christopher Johnson let the guys in the building do their job, where he was hands-off. And he loved the talking to the players. We actually had a lunch with him once. He talked about how much he appreciated the players, but he wouldn't meddle, and he wouldn't get involved in football decisions, and he let those guys work. So if Woody goes back and takes a job within the Trump administration again, I do think that Christopher Johnson, a second time around, I want to look at the positive there as opposed to the negative with the Adam Gase hire and say, I at least know that Christopher, way more than Woody, as the Johnson around, will let those guys do their job.
Well, especially after all the reports that are now coming out about all these decisions that supposedly Woody had a hand in since January.
Yep.
So I understand where there is a lot of frustration when it comes to Jet fans and their ownership. That's how I felt about the Knicks for years and years and years until ultimately Jim Dolan finally found the right guy to run the team. And it took some patience because initially we weren't hearing from Leon Rose at all. Remember, there was no contact with the press, nothing. He
did that one interview with Mike Breen, and he sounded lost. And I was like, oh, my God, this is another guy who's going to get swallowed up. And I was wrong.
Yeah, well, he waited and waited and waited, and then he finally pounced on Jalen Brunson. They made the trade for Hart. They made the trade for OG Anunoby. They were building with draft picks, trading away some draft picks. And then, of course, they make the trade for Karl Anthony Towns. And here we are, but it's taken us like 5 years to get here.
Well, yeah, and even long, in the Leon Rose
what I was talking about in the Leon Rose administration.
Right.
Yes, it's taken a while. We had to be patient. Eventually, they were going to get their stars.
Yes, they did. So you would rehire Rex?
I would consider it for sure. I wouldn't. I'm not going to sit here and just absolutely say no to it. I got to see who the other candidates are.
Yeah.
Would you? I'm asking you this. I don't know who these guys are. I'm not going to give you any names. I'm just going to give you hypotheticals. And the hypotheticals would be a Cardinal defensive coordinator.
No.
Or Rex. Listen. A Cardinal defensive coordinator or Rex Ryan.
Rex Ryan.
All right. A Kansas City offensive coordinator or Rex Ryan.
Oh, yeah, Rex Ryan.
A Tampa Bay special teams coach or Rex Ryan.
Right, no, I get the point. I am not hiring those a first-time head coach who's a coordinator. I would hire John Gruden and I would hire Brian Flores over Rex Ryan.
What about Mike Vrabel?
I would hire Mike Vrabel, but Mike Vrabel's not going to come anywhere. He's going to look at this job like a nuclear reactor that melted down that he's going to get some sort of radiation from.
How about Bill O'Brien?
Huh. I like that. I would hire Bill O'Brien before I'd hire Rex.
He's at BC right now.
I know. Yeah, I actually would. Because I think I prefer.
I'm not saying that Bill O'Brien would want to come back. I'm just giving you a potential college coach that probably I can't speak for Bill. I like Bill a lot. I really do. But, this college situation
Tough.
that these guys are dealing with on a daily basis. He benches a quarterback last week and a quarterback quits on the team. I mean, could you imagine that?
Well, yeah, we've seen it. I mean, with this new landscape. So yeah, I would throw if I'm the Johnson family, I'm throwing as much money as possible at John Gruden first, and then if he doesn't want it or he takes another job, then I'm bringing Brian Flores in and I'm making sure that he's ready for something like this. And then after that, yeah, I mean, I would have to start considering Rex after that, even though it's not something that I want to do. But more important than anything is identity with this franchise.
And that's one thing.
They?
Well, that's one thing that Rex has in spades over everybody else.
Yep, that's fair.